Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Community Foundation of Louisville, we are so grateful that you are spending an hour of your day with us today to learn a little bit more about the Charles and Jack Fund for LGBTQ plus advancement. That's a mouthful. My name is Justin Hogan. I'm the Program Officer for Economic Equity, and I'm one of three CFL staff on the call, including the amazing Miss Donna Brown and the absolutely incredible Amber Burns-Jones. We'll be here to again, talk you through this and answer any questions as we go along. As a quick bit of housekeeping as we jump in, just a heads up that we will be recording this session and it will be uploaded to our website on the other side of this. So if you have any colleagues or friends or anyone else that you want to send this to, we absolutely encourage that. Also, we encourage you to use the chat feature to list any questions. We will absolutely, again, be monitoring the chat. And on the other side of this more formal side of the presentation, we will absolutely be going through those questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Amber to offer a different side of a welcome. So Amber, off to you.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you for everyone who has showed up for this call today and for all of the work that you are doing in our community. As Justin said, my name is Amber Burns-Jones. I'm the Director of Community Engagement, which means that I am a part of the amazing group that is responsible for implementing our discretionary grant making strategy. So I am just offering another greeting on behalf of Community Foundation of Louisville, where we are mobilizing people, networks, and capital to spark meaningful change in Louisville and beyond. Thank you again for being here. And on the other side of this, if you have any questions, please feel free to first and foremost reach out to Justin, but Don and I are also available for any additional questions that you may have. Justin.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. And we'll make sure that we also include all of our emails. I think the slide might only include mine, but we'll throw it into chat, Donna and Amber's emails as well. So as a quick agenda, we're going to go through just high level, what is this fund, this grant opportunity that is available that all of you are obviously very interested in. We'll go through the timeline, eligibility requirements, and focus areas. And then I think we'll kind of end with the biggest chunk of this, which is looking at the application questions and offering any insights that we can into what we and an advisory committee of local leaders in the queer space, I think we'll be looking for once we get all of our applications in. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't start by chatting about the individuals whose legacy has brought us all together today. Charles Grumberger and Jack Kersey embody a story of love, advocacy, and queer empowerment. They met in the 1950s in Washington, D.C., where Charles was a dentist working for the federal government. There was an executive order signed by President Eisenhower at the time that made being gay or being gay made you ineligible for federal employment, so that put Charles and Jack into a place where Washington, D.C. could no longer be their home. We are very fortunate and grateful that they decided to move back to Louisville and make this their community of choice. The impacts that they had on the queer community during their life are too many to name, so I will try to just offer a few highlights. In the 70s, they were a part of the creation of the COM10 Center, which was a crisis hotline for queer folks when Louisville Metro government rescinded that support for that community. In the 80s and 90s, they were heavily involved in the establishment of Glade House, which was a hospice care center for those suffering from HIV and AIDS, and was born from Charles and Jack making their home available for someone suffering from HIV and AIDS, and they decided to spend some of their resources to make this a formal institution. Glade House was ultimately acquired by House of Ruth and still operates to this day. There is a rumor, it's sort of an urban legend, that Jack might have been the first gay man to come out on public television in a interview, I think in 1985 with WLKY. So again, just another example of incredible ways that they were increasing visibility for the queer community. And most importantly, with respect to this fund, is that in the 1990s, they set aside a $2 million endowment with the Community Foundation that upon their deaths would convert into a grant-making fund to support queer causes in Louisville. Not that you ever want to see two incredible folks pass, but in 2023, when Jack was the second of the two to pass in 2023, and when he did, the Community Foundation found ourselves in both the somber moment, but also the really exciting moment to actually activate this fund. And we will talk more about that here shortly. So again, two just incredible icons whose legacy will now continue forever thanks to this really exciting fund. So what is it? The Charles and Jack Fund for LGBTQ plus advancement is a funding source for organizations that provide supportive, inclusive, and affirming environments for LGBTQ youth. We have decided to take a really expansive definition of youth and have gone all the way up to age 24. So there is no prioritization for any segment of youth, just that we are looking to fund organizations that provide support or other services, programming or otherwise, for queer youth. Why are we doing this? Because we know that this is an area of need in our community first, and because we know that there are a series of caregivers and other advocates, just like Charles and Jack, who need monetary support to continue this great and fabulous work. And lastly, the impact, with last year being the first year that this fund made distributions, 6 organizations were awarded $20,000 in unrestricted operating support. Sorry, I lost that thought halfway in between. 6 organizations were offered $20,000 in unrestricted operating support to continue their good work in community. We fully anticipate that we will be able to match that level of impact this year, which is also very, very exciting. And also, I'll just draw a quick line to something I saw Donna put in chat. There was an incredible, absolutely incredible blog post made by CFL's Director of Marketing and Communication, Christina Miller. I strongly, strongly encourage you to give it a look. It is a tearjerker. So, timeline. We opened the application period on June 16th. It is currently June 30th, so we are at the info session. The application period will be open for another 4 weeks. It will close at 11:59 p.m. on July 28th. At that point, we will go into roughly a month-long review and selection period. I led with this a little while back, but we believe very strongly in bringing folks with lived and learned experiences to the table to help guide our decision-making process. This fund is no different. So there is a selection committee of, I believe it is 10 folks in the queer community that have been deeply involved in helping set the focus area for the fund and are also involved in the review and selection process. The public announcement, I'll kind of skip over that grantee determination, but the public announcement will occur on September 6th, and we're really excited to announce, I think you all are the first ones getting a sneak peek at this, that Louisville Pride Foundation has graciously allowed us to make a public announcement at the festival on September 6th. So if you are not going for other reasons, this would be a really exciting reason to get a ticket, hang out, and be a part of the celebration of the broader community, but also of this award. Okay, eligibility criteria. These are pretty straightforward. You have to be a nonprofit, charitable organization, or a fiscally sponsored project of a nonprofit. We are just not in the position to be able to issue grants to non-501c3s, so you must be affiliated with a C3. Secondly, your organization must be headquartered and serve folks in Metro Louisville or the state at large. And for the purposes of this, you'll see it down there. Metro Louisville includes Harrison, Floyd, and Clark counties in Indiana. There is a possible exception here that we know that there are national organizations that have local chapters. Just because your umbrella organization might not be located in Kentucky, if you have a local or regional presence, we would be, you are welcome to apply. If you have any concerns about these eligibility criteria, please do reach out to us. We want to be able to offer you a quick no if you are ineligible, because we don't want you to waste your time going through the process. But we also work really strongly to get folks to a yes if there's alignment there that we just need to tease out. So we're always looking to find the best of both worlds. The fund purpose, and this will start to kind of transition us into a conversation about the questions. But this fund supports projects and programs concerning health and education issues for the queer community, primarily in our region. So some things that I just want to touch on a little bit is, first of all, the first part of the bolded statement there, health and education issues. We also take a very expansive view of both of those words. To take a look at last year's grantees as an example, we had one awarded organization that offers gender affirming care to trans folks, obviously a health issue. We also made an award to an organization that works at the intersection of the queer community and homelessness. Very expansive view of health. Same thing with education. One of last year's grantees has done work in JCPS, working with their counselors and other staff to better support the queer students within the JCPS system, and another organization used funds to hire queer artists to tell queer stories. Again, we believe in a very expansive view of health and education, so please don't view those as narrow and limiting. Use them as just what they are, two broad categories that we encourage people to be creative in defining how they are supporting those initiatives. Secondly, you'll see a little note around queer community. Because this fund was established in the 90s, the terms that were used in the fund agreement were gay and lesbian. We feel very strongly that 30 some odd years later, that not only has queer replaced gay and lesbian to reflect more contemporary language, but we also feel that this is in keeping with our broader goal to be as inclusive as possible. And then lastly, we talked about it with respect to the geographic focus, Metro Louisville, Kentucky at large. Even though it does say secondarily, we see no preference being given here between one or the other. All right. So with that, let's start to, again, I think, look at the thing that we're all here to talk about a bit, which are these application questions. I've broken them down into 3 subsets. Donna has just added or copied and pasted a link to the application in the chat if you would like to take a look at it. So we'll kind of go through each segment here. With respect to the demographic questions, these are really just for us to get to know you, your organization, and a little bit of information. Obviously, we need to know who you are. What is the name of the organization? Or if you are a fiscally sponsored project, who is that sponsor? What is that tax ID, just so that we can go through our internal systems to verify up-to-date 501c3 status. Also, contact information. We just need to know who to call if we have any questions. And I've put a little asterisk under annual revenue to acknowledge that this has no bearing on your application. This is purely something that we are using from an internal data perspective to have better accounting on how our discretionary grant making is being deployed to different organizations at different levels of annual income. For those organizations who have taken part in Give for Good Louisville, you will probably note that these are the same tiers that are used for Give for Good. So it's all part of a more holistic and comprehensive strategy to look at annual revenue across our community. So again, just to maybe underline something here, annual revenue is not being used in any way to qualify or disqualify an organization. It's purely just for data collection. Eligibility, we walk through these. We're really just looking for the check mark here to say, yes, you are with a 501c3, and are you currently or planning to work with queer youth in our geographic area? So not going to spend too much time on those. There are 6 application questions that we'll really be using as we go through the review process to determine our grantees. We'll take a quick look at them, and I'll offer a little bit of context where appropriate to help sort of guide and explain a bit. First one, what are your organization's top 3 priorities for the upcoming year? to step back from this question a little bit, there is no, again, preference here for organizational priorities or programmatic priorities. What we're really looking for is to have a better understanding of where you are and where you can go. Again, I'm going to continue to kind of say this, we encourage creativity and expression as you go through these. There's also nothing necessarily wrong with acknowledging pain points or challenges that you're going through and making a priority overcoming one of those challenges. Happy to dig in more on that if anyone has questions, but again, we're just really looking for an understanding of where you're going over a 12-month period, which again will be the grant cycle and the grant period for this particular round of funding. Secondly, what skills, knowledge, relationships, experiences, and resources are contained within your organization? You'll see the asterisks at the bottom that we are asking for a list of staff, board, and advisory members. What we're looking for here, quite honestly, is lived and learned experiences. How ingrained in the community is your organization, or do you want your organization to be? This is, again, not saying that there is any disqualification here, but we understand and know that there are organizations that are deeply embedded and organizations that are looking to be more deeply embedded. And this question for us helps to sort of unpack and untangle some of that information. It is involved here, but how do you involve people and places you support in your organization's work and decision making? How are you engaging in active listening? How are you working with the community that you want to serve or do serve on ensuring that you are meeting the needs of your community? I think that one's pretty straightforward. 3 more on a different slide. I'm always happy to go back and look at these again if we need. Not sure if I need to elaborate on this one too much. How do you plan on using the grant dollars? Again, I said this at the top, but I will say it again. This grant will be for unrestricted operating support. So you are absolutely well within your rights to say, we're going to use this to keep the lights on. That is perfectly permissible. However, if there is and this is where, the intentionality will kind of come into it. Is there a straight line between a priority that you noted in question 1, how you plan to work with those in your community to support programming, and does that draw a straight line to how you might use these dollars? Just again, as we think through how to craft a really compelling message, obviously having that through line across your application certainly always helps. How do you measure success? Processes and tools that must be in place to effectively measure success. This is an impact question. What is the impact that your organization is creating or intends to create, and how are you measuring that? And then what tools are you using in service of acknowledging that impact and collecting that impact? I think the only thing that I'll put a pin in here is that this question is not worded or is not intended to say, like, how are you going to use the grant dollars to put a process or a tool in place to measure impact? The word I'm kind of circling around is that you don't have to necessarily see those as interconnected questions around using the dollars and the tools or processes that must be in place. So just maybe assuage fear there. And then lastly, and I think this question also speaks for itself, describe the work that your organization has conducted or intends to conduct in fostering that supportive, inclusive, and affirming environment for queer youth. Again, what the only thing that I might want to call out there is just that clause, if you will, in between the commas, that as we're going through the review process, we are just as happy to consider and will consider on equal footing plans to create or scale activities as we are activities that are already in place. Both are permissible within this grant process and both are eligible for funding. So it is perfectly okay to discuss what you intend to do. Y'all, that is it. That is the meat of this. I know that we have an hour kind of carved out, so we can, all three of us, between Donna, Amber, and myself, are happy to be here to answer any questions. So I think with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing for a few, and we welcome anyone to either in chat or to come off camera and ask any questions that they may have. Don't be shy. Come one, come all.
So I guess I'll hop in here.
Please.
So I know you said, so the question about just annual revenue, you said is just absolutely on there for just you all, and it would not affect grant, because I know like some grants, it'll be like if you don't meet this marker of like revenue, then you're not eligible. So like if you fall under the $20,000, then like it won't make you ineligible.
No, I mean that one is an unequivocal. We are not in any way looking at annual revenue as a marker of anything beyond just what it is, as a data point for us to be able to look across all of our discretionary grant making opportunities to have a better sense of where all of the organizations that we're serving fall. So yeah, it is not in any way disqualifying. Your annual revenue could be zero, and you would be just as eligible as an organization that has 100 million in revenue. We might look at that $100 million number and say, do you really need 20,000? But yes, there is no disqualifying factor related to annual revenue.
Already.
Anybody else? Do you see one in chat? I'll go ahead and read it out loud because I think when we go to post this, the chat will not come with. It's from Rachel. Our org is located in Woodford County. However, we serve clients from many counties, including Jefferson. Would you encourage us to partner with another nonprofit for our grant application that aligns in your target region? Rachel, forgive me, is Woodford County in Kentucky or is it in Indiana?
It's closer to Lexington.
So because you are located in Kentucky, you fit the eligibility criteria. You check that box of being within the state. So again, there is nothing disqualifying about it. The partnership question is sort of a tough one to answer because it's kind of it's a multifaceted thing here. Like, we love partnerships. I think as an organization, we think that organizations that partner together are going to be able to serve communities in a more robust and holistic manner. But it is also not required. We don't want anyone to go out of their way for the purposes of a grant application to devise or have to feel like you have to create a partnership solely to apply. So if there is a partnership in Jefferson County that your organization has, certainly feel free to acknowledge that and bring that up, but it is definitely not required for your organization to be eligible and apply. Of course. Got another one in chat from Kelsey. Our organization runs a support group for parents and caregivers of gender nonconforming and trans youth. Would this be in line? Yes. Just from the outside looking in, a support group sounds like a health initiative. You are there to support broader facets of folks' health. I also would imagine that a support group is focusing on education. I think like a case could be made on both sides, and that's part of that, again, expressive, creative, expansive view of health and education that we focus on. Yeah, I don't see any concerns there whatsoever. Oh, yeah, I'm also seeing Donna throw in our email addresses into chat for, again, I will say this for the purposes of folks who may be listening afterwards. Our general convention at the Community Foundation is always first name, last initial. So Justin H, Donna B, Amber J at cflouisville.org in all cases. Received one from Madeline. I work for a 501c3 that received the grant last year. I have a project I'm thinking of spinning off into its own living thing, another 501c3. Should I apply as the project as its own entity? We don't yet have our 501c3 status, but would use the money to form one. Madeline, that is a great and admittedly sort of sticky question. We would be unable to issue the non-incorporated entity a grant until it received its C3. So if this currently unincorporated entity were fiscally sponsored by another entity, we could issue a grant to the C3 for the purposes of the fiscally sponsored project, but we wouldn't be able to issue a grant directly to the unincorporated entity. Is there, I feel like there might be a follow-up there because I know that that's one of those unique. Yeah, so again, the follow-up question is if it were fiscally sponsored by the entity I work for, absolutely. Fiscal sponsorship is its own kind of can of worms. Just for a high level one sentence of it, for those who are unfamiliar, fiscal sponsorship is an arrangement where an unincorporated entity or a for-profit entity has a charitable program that is brought under the umbrella of a 501c3 as effectively being managed and run by that 501c3. So when something is fiscally sponsored, that entity is unable to receive grant funding. Madeline, to now answer, I think the next follow-up, so 2 applications are appropriate. If you mean from the organization that you work for and for this potential project that would be fiscally sponsored by, yes, I think 2 applications would be perfectly fine and permissible. In that case, there would just need to sort of be an acknowledgement that one of the applications is on behalf of the organization and another is on behalf of the fiscally sponsored project of the organization. Donna or Amber, can you help me out with where we are in the chat? I kind of lost it a little bit.
Right. Rachel had the next question.
Thanks. Are you able to share how many applications you received last year or how many you anticipate to apply this year? Donna, do you have a recollection of last year's application number?
I just went to look and pull it up. There were 34.
Okay. So 34 last year. You can never really know. Something that I'll offer for context, because it's a separate grant program that recently closed, our usual number of grant applications for that program was, I think, in and around that same number, mid-30s, because of some additional funding that was offered as part of that program. We did see the number go up to around 50 for this year. Charles and Jack in its second year, I think it'll be interesting to see if there's just greater awareness that brings in more applications. So, it's hard to answer that one comprehensively. But, we always hope that we get a number of applications because I hope this isn't me sticking my neck out too much, but the more interest we receive in grant applications, the easier it is to make the case that something like this needs to be supported further. So, yeah. Got another one from Madeline. Is the plan to fund each org at the same level this year, or will there be different award amounts this year? I am hesitant to offer a concrete answer because anything can happen. Like, so please view what I say next as like a recognition with that disclaimer at the top. The intention is to maintain the funding from last year with the caveat that anything can change. So that's the most politically correct answer I think I can offer in that regard, that we don't want to walk back our support from the queer community, and we don't intend to. But, subject to change on all the things.
Justin, it might be a good time to talk about the advisory committee and that
Sure.
they will actually probably make that decision.
Yes, I think Donna's hit the nail on the head in that regard. As I've mentioned a couple of times, we want to ensure that those who are doing the work the most often and the most regularly have a seat at the table and are in the proverbial driver's seat. So once we receive all of the applications in, they will be cut up and divided amongst the individuals on that advisory committee to review. And then we bring everyone together to have a really robust and fantastic conversation about all of the applications, and then go through the process of making a determination on that front. So that is sort of like what the end process looks like. And maybe just to offer a little more context around or one other aspect of the rationale is that, Amber, Donna, and I, as just 3 individuals amongst a staff, certainly have our connections and our touch points to the queer community, but we do not feel that we represent the queer community. And it is, again, deeply important for us that we invite individuals who more appropriately represent the community that we are funding to help us make very informed and conscientious decisions about that. These have all been really great questions. Again, we've still got, a significant amount of time. So if there is anything else, please don't hesitate to jump in.
So I sort of have another question that I've been sitting here pondering on
Yeah.
a little bit. Just because so what the wording that you all used is it's Metro Louisville, including Floyd and all of those. So would it make more sense to word it the same exact way that you've worded it? Or because I know my organization, we say we serve Kentuckiana. And so that's where I'm trying to just kind of figure that out. So what would be your suggestion, I guess, on that?
Like with respect to, I just want to find the right question to answer here. So with respect to, go ahead, please.
So I guess because some people, I guess, look at Kentuckiana to be a little bit different than what you list, because that's what it's, because listening to some of the other questions of just how it is Metro Louisville and Kentucky. And so I was just wondering if there was any advice on that, possibly just word it more how you all have worded it, that, we serve Metro Louisville and these Indiana places. Because I know sometimes southern Indiana can go a little further than those counties.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to be thoughtful in my answer here. Language is important, but I don't think that we are going to again dock between Kentuckiana and Metro Louisville. I think there's also just a common understanding that we all know that Kentuckiana does lean into Southern Indiana. And really our reasoning for saying Metro Louisville and then defining what we meant by Metro Louisville is that, and again, sorry, there's some historical context here, is that the fund agreement that was set up with Charles and Jack was set up in the 90s, and maybe Metro Louisville was the common language back then. We wanted to preserve as much of that as possible when we created the eligibility criteria for this. So when the decision for Harrison, Floyd, and Clark County, just to, again, for full transparency, was for us looking at Jefferson County and including the counties that have a physical boundary with Jefferson County on the Indiana side. So it was purely designed to say, like, well, we know that Kentuckiana can extend further than that, but if we have to set a boundary limit, let's try to do it with something that feels most appropriate. So I think if you were to say that you serve Kentuckiana, again, there's no harm in that word choice. It was a long answer for a potentially short question, but does that give you what you were looking for?
Yes, but it was just kind of one, and that's why it took me a minute to go. I'm just gonna ask this. Go on the whim and ask.
Totally. And I think for what it's worth too, we're also very intentional when we go to our advisory committee on the other side of this, of basically saying, if we are sending these applications to you all, trust that we have done the work on our side to check the box around eligibility, so that there's not any conversation in the room with respect to, like, well, I saw this, does that mean this organization's eligible? Like, if you got the application, presume eligibility has been established.
That gives me a little bit more confidence, because I've had that like happen in the past, and it's just like, I don't understand.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we will try. We value transparency and wanting to work with people as or holding ourselves to account and wanting to be as, again, transparent as possible. So yeah, happy to answer those. Any other burning questions? Well, I also don't want to hold anyone. If anyone's furiously typing away, I'm gonna slowly lead into thank you here. This is wonderful, everyone. We love this opportunity to interface directly with folks who are interested in applying for our grant opportunities. So thank you all. Again, we said this a little bit earlier, but I'll say it one more time. If you have any additional questions, if anything comes up on the other side of this, Donna, Amber, and I are here to, again, support you in crafting the best application that you possibly can. Our main goal is just to make sure that we are supporting community in the best way that we can. Again, that naming convention is just first name, last initial at cfl.org. So Donna B, Justin H, Amber J at cflouisville.org. Thank you all so much. As just one final reminder, the application period will close July 28th at 11:59 p.m. So even though, again, there will be nothing that harms your application if it comes in at 11:58 p.m., don't hesitate to, again, reach out to us in advance to support anything you need. Thank you all so much. Enjoy this last day of Pride Month, and enjoy a holiday weekend if you are getting out of town. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.